What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Jack Ramsays pregame show. Danny Marang, no Brandon Sprague today. We actually upgraded. We got James Ham, the homie from Sacramento, from ESPN 1320 Insider, and the Kings Beat, long-suffering Kings media member. I think is that the formal way to introduce anybody who's covered the Kings for any long period of time?
Yeah, I think that's 12. This is my 12th year.
God bless you.
Yeah. It's I'm doing God's work out here in Sacramento.
All right, man. Normally, I would get into just kind of this game in general, but we do have some semi-breaking news. Damian Lillard is being shut down for the next 6 games for that road trip after being sat for 3 games to kind of get a good idea of where he's going to be physically with his ab injury. You've covered the NBA for a long time. Coach speak-wise, this definitely sounds like the preemptive line to probably shutting Damian Lillard down for the season as it lines up with the NBA trade deadline and the All-Star break. Is that kind of reading between the lines what you see?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you see it's a abdominal muscle, right?
Abdominal tendinopathy is the nomenclature used here.
Yeah, I seem to remember Darren Collison had this when he was with the Kings, and he was down. I think it was 6 to 8, but you never know. I mean, at this point with Dame, I would say there's a good chance that you're not going to see a lot of him, especially if you take him away from the Blazers. What are they? Who are they? How do they recover? And the answer is they don't. At least not in the short term.
And I think that's kind of what the Portland Trailblazers are heading for right now. Is that not even really a stealth tank. It's the stealth covering is coming off the tank. It's a full blown tanks on the battlefield. We're seeing the battle plans being drawn. Nobody's really throwing camo nets over the top anymore. It's a situation where Portland has kind of they've steered out of this. They've steered out of the skid a couple times really since 2015. They had obviously the 2015 season where they were supposed to fall apart. Really, they were picked to win 27.5 games and they clear 44. That's a significant difference when you're talking 15, 16, 17 games from a Vegas line. But this team is not going to do it. On the flip side, Sacramento Kings, a team that has beat the Portland Trailblazers twice already this season. Where are they, man? What is going on? This is even for Kings dysfunction. This feels like a weird season.
Yeah, I know Jim Cosmore used to always say, who did our television in Sacramento for a long time, never too high, never too low. This season is always too high, always too low. The Kings, they went through a stretch that the last couple of games have been much better. They've been more competitive for about 8 games. That doesn't mean they're winning. They've lost 3 straight. But in those games, you've actually seen like regular NBA basketball where it comes down to the final couple of minutes. Before that, in their losses, they were losing by like 18. And in their wins, they were winning by 8. So there was no close game.
The Trailblazers special.
Yeah, either you blew someone out or you got drubbed. And so it really sets up where you can win a couple of games in a row, but then the losses feel so bad that the fan base is in panic mode. And I don't know about you, like I love going up to Portland and going to the Moda Center and seeing all of the Blazers fans. I'll say where they pipe in music so loud that the speakers are right at our level when we're sitting up in the
media row. It is right there. You don't hear anything.
Yeah, so it's so incredibly loud, but still the fan base has always been amazing. The fan bases are very similar, super loyal, only team in town type stuff. And so the Kings are having a huge attendance problem, and it's only going to get worse if this season continues the way it is. They have no choice at this point but to make a trade one way or another. Either be good, like swing for the fences, give up a bunch of first round picks, and really try to go aggressively like grab somebody, or be really bad and go in tank mode like what you guys are saying. The Kings just always refuse to do tank mode, which it's silly, which is how you end up with the 7, 8, 9 pick every single year, and you basically sit in NBA mediocrity or slightly below,
or you get caught up in Thomas Robinson. But
yeah,
it happens. It happens to the best of us. For those of you just joining us, James Ham, ESPN 1320, the Kings beat, long-time 12-year veteran of the Sacramento Kings coverage. thank you. We appreciate you joining us. And for those of you that are just joining us now here on YouTube, please like, rate, review, subscribe across all platforms for the podcast and for the live show. Subscribe here on YouTube. We're growing the community like crazy. We just crossed 2,300. So thank you all for helping us, especially in a season that, well, to be honest, sucks. It's been a carnival ride, to say the least. We are in that time of year, James, where things are getting spicy on the internet, so to speak. I'm a trade machine guy. I know I am the sick one. I am fully admitted to this. I know most media members just despise it because of the whole idea of the back and forth. I am an RPG guy. I like the idea of building something. Would this work? How would this work? What is this machination? I'm twisted, man. But you kind of hinted at it a little bit there. Are the Kings going to be what? Are they going to tank? Are they going to try to compete with the Blazers in a race to the bottom? Are they going to be buyers or are they going to be sellers over the next 3 weeks?
Yeah, I believe they're going to be buyers. It's very possible that they'll be buyers and sellers at the same time, which is sort of that weird thing that does happen where, you could see some of your veterans go for younger players. Or in the case of, Marvin Bagley or Buddy Hield, it's what can you get for them at this point? And just try to move pieces around. They've tried for a long time to make some moves, but so far the Monty McNair era has been nothing but talk on the outside, and it's really difficult to cover a team that in one offseason signs Hassan Whiteside and Glenn Robinson III, and then the next offseason truly your big moves at the trade deadline and coming into the season are Tristan Thompson, Alex Len, Mo Harkless. You added Davion, but Terrence Davis. The problem that the Kings have is that they've overestimated their core. And so you added some nice pieces that are secondary or even third pieces. And as of last week, none of those guys were actually in the rotation. So all the guys that you added, except for Davion Mitchell, which you got via the draft, and then of course Halliburton, who they got in the draft last year. But the thing that Monty McNair basically has done in his career so far is draft Halliburton, which every GM in the league would have drafted Halliburton at number 12. And then secondly is to not get anything for Bogdan Bogdanovic when he left via free agency. And that's not a good place to be. No. Like 2 years of inactivity, that doesn't fly. If you, like Jerry Reynolds always says, if you have a 5-year plan at the NBA level, you have no plan at all.
Because it just changes too quick.
Yeah, everything changes and you don't know what you have. And then I just think really the Kings overestimated what their core could do. And then Fox got off to a bad start. The Halliburton-Fox mixture is taking a little bit of time to really click, which, you guys are used to. It took CJ and it took Dame a little while to become a really strong backcourt. You got to give a pair like this, 2-3 years to really figure themselves out. And with last season shortened, and then on top of that, both guys.
The last 3 years really haven't counted. Like it's just,
no, they shouldn't.
I mean, you're not getting guys their normal reps, their normal spacing, their normal practice, their normal tape time. Like it's just boom, 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 boom. Like take a Nasir Little in Portland. He hasn't had a normal year in his career. He's in year 3. He hasn't had a normal basketball season in his career, and that's kind of, I think, especially when we focus on young guys, that can really screw us with development. And the Kings have not been great at developing young guys. I think Fox and Fox, Hallie, and really Davion look like they could maybe break that trend. But you got to get some non-guard guys. I feel like I'm talking about the Blazers right now to actually hit on. But you talked about Hield and Bagley. I think Hield and Bagley represent to Portland fans very much what Robert Covington and Yusuf Nurkic mean right now, as far as they're gone for the most part. I mean, they're not a part of the team going forward. With both of those guys, I think both Portland and Sacramento on both sides with both those guys, they're just kind of looking for what they can get, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's interesting. We've seen the Kings and Blazers have these sort of mini moves over the course of the last, 4 or 5 seasons.
Olshey has not dealt with anybody more than Sacramento. More transactions than any other team.
It Caleb Swanigan and
twice.
and That's true twice. And Scalabiciere. Like there's a bunch of like little trades that these guys make between each other. I think, again, we're probably in a situation where the Kings need a veteran that can play defense, and the Blazers need a young big that they might want to gamble on. And so we could see some movement here. And I think that's probably best for everyone involved. Like a guy like Covington might make sense next to a guy like Harrison Barnes, next to, Harrison Barnes and Mo Harkless in like a three forward rotation, which is like nothing but Portland Trailblazer guys except for Harrison.
Well, and then Neil Olshey tried to get Harrison over multiple times, so
yeah.
he's a Portland guy by proxy at this point.
There you go. And then with a guy like Bagley, like there's a lot of potential there, and I'll tell you, he's not averaging like 14 points and 7.5 rebounds a game like he did his first 3 years. I guarantee you he's a better player today with the stats he's putting up than he was in any of the previous 3 years. He's just a better player. You're seeing the light bulb go on. He's not forcing things. He's rebounding outside of his zone really well. They're calling it a crash box. He's able to fly in when he is, stationed out at the 3-point line. He hasn't hit his three all that well. But if you need a guy who, can go back to the basket, that can run the floor, the biggest issue with him has always been injuries. And so far this season, he's actually done a pretty good job of avoiding anything major. And, he's a good kid. He's got a ton of potential. And there's a sneaky thing about him that his qualifying offer is very interesting. So if he starts over, I think it's 41 games this season, then his qualifying offer jumps to like 14.7 million. If not, it's under $7 million.
Yeah, isn't it like 6.2 or something like that?
Yeah, it's 6.2, 6.4. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but like if you just basically bring him in and you don't start him for the first 15 games, then he won't hit that mark as a starter criteria, and his qualifying
the cap
offer
hold's cut in half.
Yeah, it drops to nothing. And he's a low budget flyer for a 22-year-old with all kinds of potential, former number 2 overall pick. And we can say, hey, he shouldn't have been the number 2 overall pick. I'll tell you this, he wasn't dropping below 5 in that draft. That, he was going anywhere from 2 to 5. And did the Kings make a mistake not drafting Luka? Of course they did, but at the same point, I think that's sort of what he's been branded as here in Sacramento, is not Luka. And that's really a tough thing to live with. And the Kings are still searching for the exact player that they think that Marvin Bagley could have, should have, would have been. And so, he's starting right now, but I don't know if it's a long-term thing, and we'll have to see how it all pans out. He's been in and out of the starting lineup over the last maybe 2 weeks.
When you look, obviously, those two guys, they don't factor into the team long-term, but you've got two guys in De'Aaron Fox and Harrison Barnes who could factor into the team long-term, and most specifically Fox. Fox's name has come up a ton, both in national pundits' trades, particularly as it pertains to Ben Simmons. But also, Alvin Gentry hasn't been. I don't know. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he hasn't held back with criticisms of unnamed players over the last couple of weeks, and Fox seems to have responded to that. Do you think that his future is in any real jeopardy over the next 3 weeks based on his play, or are they just kind of sitting back, and if a Godfather offer came, then they'd have to listen?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really get a read on these guys because they haven't done anything yet. So, right, you try to look at someone's history and say, okay, what have they done? Does this make sense with what we've seen before? Does it jive? And then we look at you can go back with some of these guys okay, what did the Houston Rockets do? And that's been a lot of what we've seen from Monty, or at least a speculation of what Monty would do. He's going to chase a star, and then whatever it takes to get that star, he's going to do it and then pay the consequences later. But then he hasn't done anything. So it's really hard to say that that's who he is when, you have no track record at this point. When it comes to Fox, he just turned 24. And he's under contract for this year and 4 more years. They just signed him to a 5-year, $163 million extension. To me, it's absolutely crazy to consider trading a 24-year-old who averaged 25 and 7 last year and is under contract for another 4 years after this season. That to me is lunacy. and that doesn't mean they're not going to do it.
There you go.
But it would be probably the biggest move. I mean, the Kings traded Cousins when he was, I think, 26, 27. But that was a whole other issue, right? And we just saw that he just put up 15 and 10 with 3 steals and a block and got waived later that night by a team who needs a starting center and has like championship aspirations. So like there's reasons why that happened. Now, when it comes to Fox, he's been a little aloof this season. He's been a little hit and miss with the media for sure. I think he's been a little hit and miss with his teammates. He's a guy that, is kind of wearing the losses really badly.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't blame him. He just had 3 games in a row with 30 points or more, or exactly 30 points. I think he's averaging like 28 and a half over his last 4 games. And the Kings are on a 3-game losing streak and lost, 3 out of 4 while he's blowing up. So it just doesn't seem to be translating at this point. And they have other pieces and other reasons why that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we can talk about like the group around them is not good enough. But at the same time, you would hope that he would be able to elevate his teammates and get this team out of the funk that they've been in for the last 15 seasons. So will he get traded? Like if I were a betting man, I would say no. But if he did get traded, I wouldn't be stunned.
It wouldn't hammer you out of left field. Like, oh my God, they dealt De'Aaron Fox.
No, it would not. Like the DeMarcus Cousins thing. I mean, I literally reported like 2 weeks before he got traded. I had both sides confirm he was getting his contract extension. He was getting a 5-year, $220 million contract extension. Both sides confirmed to me that was happening. And then he gets traded because he just couldn't control himself. And so, and they didn't even get a great deal out of him. They just, at that point, it was like, we got to move on.
Got to go.
But at this point, how could you be there with Fox? He's been the face of the franchise through some really dark times. And like, if you look around the arena, if there are jerseys in the stands, they're number 5 jerseys. And the fact that
maybe some leftover number 15s.
Maybe a few, but not enough to make the franchise go pick up the guy who's sitting there, on a who's about to sign a 10-day or did sign a 10-day with the Denver Nuggets. So
let's switch to tonight's game real quick. It's a weird season, as we've highlighted a million times already here. The Kings have 2 more wins than the Blazers right now, 16 wins to 14 wins. They played, I think, a game or 2 more than Portland. But that gap feels enormous considering the way Portland has played this season. They got a couple wins early on in the season I kind of called false wins. They got Phoenix early on, and I think it was the 2nd or 3rd game of the season, and Phoenix was playing their 3rd game in 4 nights. They snuck one out against a Memphis. Otherwise, they've been one of the 3 worst teams in the NBA. They've been that bad. The Kings, I feel like, are just in a funky spot. But you look at tonight's game, Portland could get within a game. Actually, I think technically they're a half game right now, but in the win column, they could get within a game if Portland wins tonight. But obviously, they're not going to have Norman Powell, Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum. When you look at this Kings team, what do they need to do tonight to win in Portland? What is it that makes the Kings be the Kings in the good fashion?
Well, I think I'll flip it. The thing why the Kings aren't good, it doesn't matter what the first half score is. Like it all depends on what happens in the 3rd quarter. The Kings are a fragile team. They're not only fragile, but they're not very physical and they're not tough. And when they get punched in the early 3rd quarter, they lay down. And other teams feel that. And so that's what we've seen this season. They lead the Lakers by 6 at the half. They lose by 20. They also can't deal with a team that's missing players. I mean, they lost to Philadelphia missing 5 starters. They just lost.
Blazers did that one too.
The Atlanta Hawks with, Kevin Huerter and Clint Capella were the only 2 real players that they had from their main rotation. Gallinari, but he's still not even close to who he should be or was. And then Cam Reddish had a good game, but they just can't get out of their own way. And it usually stems from the 3rd quarter. And we're starting to see Fox take over in the 4th. And that's what I would say. If you see Fox take over in the 4th, He is dealing with a shoulder injury, but he's going to play. Then I think the Blazers will be in trouble. But one guy always gets hot against the Kings, and we saw the Kings. What was it, 3 years ago? Lose to the Blazers, drop 82 in the first half, and
it was the Anthony Simons game.
Yeah, lose to 6 players: Anthony Simon and Scalabisi.
Scal had maybe his career game.
Yeah, just ran over the Kings in the second half while Dave Yeager just basically flipped off the franchise. That was like a parting shot from Dave Yeager. Here we go. We're not getting to 40 wins. You're not going to see 40 wins. And the Kings haven't seen 40 wins since I think the 2005 season.
Which is just like, it's unfathomable. I'm sitting here trying to deal with the frustration of this season. And
you should live in my shoes for like
12 years,
at least 3 years. Yeah, I have the worst win-loss record of any a beat writer that you're ever going to find.
I don't doubt it. I think only rivaled by maybe Pistons coverage over the last 12 years. I think it's probably neck and neck in that vein.
At least they've made the playoffs.
That's true. They did sneak one in there.
Yeah.
One of the things we do here is we have like it, love it, leave it. What would you love to see from the Sacramento Kings tonight for them to be successful?
Like Fox and Halliburton going off together. That's been a problem. Halliburton has a tendency to disappear in games, which doesn't make any sense. He's so incredible. He just went through a streak where he was averaging 11 assists a game
with Fox out, correct?
Some of it was with Fox out,
okay.
But then when Fox came back, he still had a bunch of double doubles, and he had a bunch of 20 and 10 double doubles. But the problem that you have is that he shoots 7 field goal attempts in a game, or 6 field goal attempts. So he's got to step up and actually shoot, because he's tremendous. I mean, I think he's shooting something like 61% over the last 4 games from 3, but he's only averaging like 12 points because he's not shooting enough. And
I'm looking at
really
quick,
crazy.
51% from the field, 65% over the last 5 from 3, which decent. His overall box score line 14, 8, and 4, which.
Yeah, he's very good. He reminds me of a young CJ. He's put together like CJ.
Mm-hmm.
He talks to the media like CJ. Just a really, really smart, creative basketball player. Yeah, polished all around and just unselfish to a fault. And the second he gets over that, he's going to be really good. So if you can get both of those two going at the same time, I don't think you can stop the Kings. And then the other thing is, you can't let Buddy Hield shoot you out of a game. So he's been on a tear right now, but live by the buddy, die by the buddy is our mantra in Sacramento. He'll shoot 0 of 10 in the first half, and he'll take another 8 shots in the second half. And so a lot of times he'll shoot you out of a game and then score once it's over just to get his numbers. It's a little tough to watch sometimes.
I can imagine. On the Portland side of things, we kind of talked about it a little bit 3 years ago with Anthony Simons. No Damian Lillard, no CJ McCollum, no Norman Powell. The Portland Trailblazers have 2 young guys, and Anthony Simons and Nasir Little. The franchise is going to hand them the keys for the next 45 games. They are going to get all of the looks and all the opportunities physically possible at this point in time. I would be very surprised, especially after the All-Star break, to not see Anthony Simons be options 1 through 3 before things are all said and done. So my love it for now until the end of the season will be Anthony Simons being put in the Damian Lillard role to kind of figure some things out. What would you like to see from Sacramento tonight? You got your love it. You're the backcourt pairing kind of going. What would you like to see?
Yeah, what I would like to see is them play cohesive as a defensive unit. That's also been a huge issue. I don't know how they can do that, especially with guys like, Rashawn Holmes, Damian Jones out of the lineup at the center position. But don't give in, because that's defensively, it's been a nightmare for the last couple of seasons. They were historically bad last year. They've improved a little bit this year, but just not good enough. Yeah, just not good enough.
For me, I'm going to go ahead and take the idea of giving a damn about a basketball game, because the Portland Trailblazers have been great about that. However, with the young guys playing and with guys playing for rotation spots and maybe some guys playing to get traded out of here, the care factor has gone up quite a bit. I think this is pretty clear to pretty much everybody that the way things are heading is that it's being blown up. It's Damian Lillard and then maybe the young guys and then some assets. They're pushing hard for that top 3 pick. They're just mere percentage points out of that right now. And then I'm going to beat you to this on the Leave It tonight. I just don't want to watch a bad basketball game. I have watched too many bad basketball games this year where listen, not making shots is one thing, but the lack of give a damn, the lack of care, the lack of just, you turn it on, you're like, I'm getting paid to watch this, but even then this hurts. What's your Leave It tonight?
Yeah, I mean that's been the biggest issue with the Kings. It's not. I don't think it's that they don't care. It's that they just don't seem to be able to play together. Yeah. And so I would love to see a team play together and move together in like one direction, like just pull the same rope and play together and figure it out. But I don't think that they can. So yeah, I'm with you. Getting a team that, and the worst part is they're a half game out of the
play-in. Yeah.
The play-in is the devil at this point. It's the devil because it makes a team like the Kings just sit there and
they want it though, right? Like it would mean something.
Oh, they want it
just because to Portland it wouldn't mean anything. It's they're beyond the pale as it pertains to that stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean we're talking about 15 consecutive seasons without the playoffs.
Yeah.
The Kings want it, but like you got to show me that you want it. You can't just keep saying that you want it. And for that matter, that you're not good enough. Go out and get the pieces that you need. Give up some draft picks. You've squandered 15 years of draft picks. Go out and trade some of those draft picks for someone that can actually make a difference right now. And so hopefully that's what we see, but I don't know. I mean, the Kings aren't a number 1, frontline ace away from being a playoff team. They're more like a team that needs a number 2, number 3 starter, some relief help, and then a bat at whatever position, but they need a bat as well. And so they don't have enough depth. They have enough depth. They don't have enough quality of depth.
There you go. What's weird is the Portland Trail Blazers and the Sacramento Kings typically play some of the most entertaining games of the season every year. It's the dumbest possible thing imaginable. It doesn't matter where either team is. Well, I should say the Kings have just been bad for 15 years. The Blazers have been mostly good. But no matter what, it's been a competitive matchup on multiple levels. You had Yusuf Nurkic's crazy 5x5 game. You had Anthony Simons' 37-point game. You've had some DeMarcus Cousins, Myers Leonard battles that went sideways.
Oh, yeah.
There's always been a little something in these games, really, for a decade. And so it's going to be one of those opportunities. And everybody's in the chat right now telling me that, the game's at 6. Yes, I know the game's at 6, guys. We wanted to make sure we got somebody else on here with Brandon out and James Brings perspective from the Kings. But I will say that because we're going to wrap it up. And thank you, James. I appreciate you. If you guys want, you can find James on Twitter at James_HamNBA. Is the Kings Insiders for ESPN 1320 and on the Kings Beat as a analyst and the podcast host there. Follow him. I've known James for a while. We had him back on Outsiders back in the day. He's a fellow NBC brother, and he's about as plugged into the Kings as you're going to get. Hands down. So, James, thank you for joining us, man. Really appreciate you. Go try to enjoy this game. I'm going to try. For those of you guys that are going to be here for the watch party, I will put the link up in about 20 seconds once we hop off of the podcast, and I'll see you guys in there. Until then, guys, like, rate, review, subscribe. Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching here on YouTube, please subscribe. Help us grow the channel. And we'll catch you in the watch party and then the post-game show. Brandon will be back for the post-game show. He had his gambling show tonight because, gambling is the devil.